relationships, a safe space, they come from listening qualities, basically. And when there's a leader who is able to be present with him or herself and is able to listen from at least a place of compassion and really see the other person, then a safe place as a natural outcome shows up for all the team members.
Welcome to Safe Space Made Simple, a practical podcast that guides clinical leaders and healthcare managers to create trust and support with their teams. I'm your host, Trace Hobson. Join me for weekly interviews, practical tools, and inspiring transformational stories of bringing people together in healthcare. Now, let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Safe Space Made Simple, the podcast that's designed to help leaders, managers, and teams generate a safe space, sometimes in situations and times when that feels impossible to do. I want to acknowledge this week with everything that's been going on in the political world, in the world generally. There's so much that's happening, so many different, things that are going on that can be challenging, that can feel like pressure. And then we have everything that's going on in our lives, our individual lives, our families. There's oftentimes so much going on, and then you go to work and there's just as much happening there as well. And so in today's episode, Caroline and I talk about the idea of being somebody who can generate a safe space and listen and start that inside of themselves so that they can navigate the chaos that's going on in life and work, in the world. And so in today's episode, we have a really great conversation about the quality of your listening and how to be open-hearted and why that would even be a good idea in some situations where that might feel really difficult. Also, at the end of the episode, we share a little bit about some tooling that you can use as a leader, also in your team, where you can start to create a ripple effect. In fact, there's a tool that I'll share with this particular episode as well called the ripple effect, a handout. And there's also a newsletter connected to this podcast as well that I release every week on Sundays called the Sunday Safe Space Leader. And so that Safe Space Leader newsletter will also have the tool and the visual as well. And so if you'd like to have that, you can always click the link down below and download that too. So without further ado, let's get right into the show today. Caroline, you were just talking to me about the masterclass that you and Sasha, your colleague in Holland, did on listening. And then you were talking about how you were trying to use awareness and presence to identify where you're listening from, what your default listening is. Tell us a little bit about the masterclass, what you were doing, and then double click on that and go a little deeper on your default listening place. That would be interesting to know more about that.
Yeah. This masterclass is all about intentionally asking questions and listen to a partner, but also listen to yourself, of course, because what the quality of one's listen capabilities, let's put it that way, and the quality of the questions you ask yourself or someone else really defines the quality of the space you experience together, the way you fill in your leadership, or how you coach, or how you show up as a parent or partner. It really is so very foundational in human relationships, listening and asking questions. So Sascha Krijger, she's my Dutch colleague, as you said, and myself, we created this masterclass, 4-part masterclass, in which we combine hard theory on how to phrase or frame phrase a question, the levels from which you can listen, and it's quite mainstream theory, And we combine that with presence work and becoming aware of yourself in any situation, in any conversation with somebody. Becoming presence with yourself, but also becoming aware of your default and the patterns in your listening and the questions that you ask in order to be able to, well, become a little bit more aware and then play a little bit more with other options in questioning and listening. So it's really about broadening your, widening, broadening all the possibilities you can choose from
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of always walking the same path.
Right. What I'm curious about, we were talking a little bit off camera about all the different things that are happening in the world right now with you mentioned the US election, of course, but then there's also when you work in healthcare, there's so many different things that are happening and changing and then in people's lives that work in healthcare, there's so many things happening and and lots of times really big things.
Yeah.
So what are you discovering about the default listening in those times that are really filled with pressure or there's lots happening in the world and in your life and at work? And how are you actually like breaking through that default to something new?
Well, to start with a response to this last question, how to actually break through a default, that's about awareness. That's really awareness, becoming aware in the first place of a default. Because if you're not aware of your default, the way you were wired over the past decades, maybe, or years, well, then there's no way that you will be able to change anything. Then you can learn maybe another trick out of the book. But that doesn't mean that you start that you're able to create another co-creative space with a partner.
No. Tips and tricks don't work. So give an example of your default when you're under pressure. What are some defaults for you that you've noticed that you've been able to transform, but that at one time, like I'll share mine too after you share yours, but
Yeah.
I like there's several defaults that I can think of for me. Well, maybe I'll just start. So under pressure and from my conditioning, my default listening place oftentimes is to just fix it or have a solution. Move forward, get it done, go. Let's go. So not a lot of what I noticed over the years, and it took years for me to even notice that default listening, um, is that that doesn't honor human beings. Like that doesn't actually create relationship with myself, with other people. And then of course I can't have any relationship with different problems or challenges that come that can create something new because I'm just trying to fix it all the time. I'm
Mhm.
pushing against it.
Yeah.
So that would be one that comes to mind for me right away. What are some of yours?
Well, a big default that I discovered in the process of preparing this masterclass is actually that I have a habit of faking open questions. And I fake it by asking a closed question and then put a question mark behind the closed question. So it sounds like an open question, but it isn't.
Yeah, give me an example.
Like, for example, you agree, don't you? Question
So,
mark.
so what's the energy underneath that that faking it that you're talking about? So what is it that's really going on for you that you're trying to do there?
Well, I'm definitely trying to influence an outcome. So
That,
that's
that
definitely
leaders, by the way, leaders never do this. Managers never
no,
do this,
no,
by the
no,
way.
no.
Just under pressure, we never
No, but
ever.
it was not only under pressure.
No.
It
Oh, really?
actually that was quite a discovery, to be honest. I do sometimes, but I did in any case. I did it everywhere in a conversation with my husband, with my sister, with a friend, always, because
So
I
what's the
wasn't.
driver that's trying, what's underneath that for you that's trying to drive forward? Like what is the essence of what you were trying to get from the faking the open questions with
I wasn't trying to get anything. I wasn't even aware of it. I thought I was an excellent listener. I was an excellent questioner. Well, maybe not excellent, but good. And so it was quite a blow to my ego to become aware of this default. Nobody had ever said to me, you always ask closed questions. And looking back, I can definitely find a reason why I create or why I developed this habit over the years. It's got to do with work in a police environment and then as a manager, where you, under pressure, there's pressure, get used to telling people
what to
what to
do?
do, but the truth is, I wasn't aware of it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so today we had a first meeting with a class around this topic, and other defaults that bubbled to the surface were defaults like uh, trying to be smart and try while somebody is talking already in your mind, uh, trying to find a smart or a powerful question, or listening from an idea that after somebody has shared what he or she is sharing, there must be a question that leads to a quick solution. So it's already action oriented. And
Mm.
what also popped up by a few of the participants was a default to avoid unsafety, because being able to really be present with your partner, listen from a space of and a presence inside yourself where you're not rehearsing a powerful question or something, that really requires safety. Feeling safe in and with yourself, and feeling safe enough to be in a vulnerable place after somebody stops sharing, and then not knowing if a response or question or something bubbles up inside you that, yeah, that helps the conversation into a next phase, or to a next, or the questioner or the one who shared a story to a next step. So yeah, it's also got to do with safety.
I think that this is so important because as I'm listening to you, there's, I mean, first of all, this is so common. I think that we all just think this is normal, because as you're listening to somebody and thinking about what you're going to say or what's the smart solution or, let's get to the action or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. The reason why that becomes really counterproductive in a complex, demanding work environment or life or world for that matter, we're all kind of in complexity in all of those places, is because if you're in reaction and you don't feel safe fundamentally, your brain can't actually access the parts of it that it needs for collaboration, creative problem solving, executive function,
Yeah.
and social connection,
Yeah.
connection to other people. And I remember for me being a manager that was so action oriented for so long that what I used to fake it too, like you're talking about with the fake questions, like pretending that you're listening, but not really listening. like I could check the box of relationship. Like, okay, check. I've listened to you. Now let's just do what I want to do now because I've checked that box. And that short circuits relationships, and it also short circuits coming up with solutions that are actually going to work in really complex situations. In fact, maybe the solution is to be present,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
and you know what's funny? Because there's also well, there are many aspects um, that are important when it comes to conversations and finding solutions and your way forward and listening and questioning. But we also found that there's a cultural component
Hmm.
that in cultures where it's normal to first pay some attention and some time to creating a relationship between yourself and the one you're going to have a conversation with. Like in Belgium, for example, there it's normal. It's custom to first start with a maybe 10-minute, 50-minute even talk to create a connection. And in Italy, for example, that's normal. But in the Netherlands, it's not very usual and also not common and maybe even not done to spend some time and work on a relationship and start with creating a relationship. We dive immediately into getting things done, problem solving. And we'd say in Dutch, hupsakee.
Hupsagate. What does that mean?
Hupsakee. That means, come on, get it done.
Yeah. Antiamo, let's go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I would say that in Canada and the United States, it's very similar. Everybody's just in such a hurry. And I I I think that part of the reason why we're really hitting the wall in healthcare, especially, like that's where I work, so I think about healthcare a lot, is because we human beings need each other to be able to do really difficult things together, first and foremost, before we get to strategy and change management and operational efficiency, all those things that are being sort of championed are missing that relationship piece.
yeah,
And what I'm finding in listening to other leaders and to managers and teams is that there's a longing for that relationship, that connection. And once
yeah.
they have it, it's funny, like you can actually feel your body relax a little bit when you feel seen and heard and connected
Mhm.
with other people. And then all of a sudden, people have ideas and they
Exactly.
have things that they think about that are great possibilities and collaboration. And everybody's starting to come together to work on things that a few moments ago were impossible to solve problems
Yeah.
because, we're totally disconnected. So I love
And
what you're doing
yeah,
here.
that's what you're sharing here, talking about now. That's really connected to your listening qualities. And from what level do you listen? Are you able to listen from a compassionate place in yourself? And maybe even a step further or deeper, are you able to listen from a generative place inside yourself, where all aspects, also the not known aspects, um, uh, can have their place. So relationships, a safe space, they come from listening qualities, basically. And when there's a leader who is able to be present with him or herself and is able to listen from at least a place of compassion and really see the other person, then a safe place as a natural outcome shows up for all the team members.
I think one of the things that for me was a big, big awareness or aha moment was understanding. that compassion has to start with me, though. I have to actually have the ability to, first of all, like you're saying, I have to notice that I don't actually feel safe. If I'm in a constant frenzy to get things done and I'm kind of steamrolling over people in the process and not even really listening, there's a part of me I acknowledge and recognize that it just doesn't feel safe. And then to like have, instead of trying to, you know, make myself do better, which is what was my normal way of being for a long time, somewhere along the line, I just started to take a deep breath and be with the fact that I felt that agitation, that anxiety.
Yeah.
And then slowly, one breath at a time, compassion starts to come. It's like, man, like I wonder what I could do that's different here, or what is it that I really need and want here? And starting to really like start there was such a foreign concept for me. I remember it being sort of like just one microsecond at a time, one breath at a time, and feeling that agitation. And eventually, over time, it started to change for me.
Hey, just a quick pause to today's podcast. Are you having a challenge as a clinical leader with one or more individuals who you find activate you on your team? Or maybe you're noticing that oftentimes you want to be able to communicate with people, but in the heat of the moment, it's difficult for you because you're having a difficult time regulating yourself. Well, I totally understand this. This has been some of the biggest challenges in my life as a leader and as a human being. And so I created a free resource for clinical leaders, nurse educators, and healthcare executives called the Relationship Regulator. It's a mini course that will show you step by step a framework that may serve you very powerfully in this area. So if you want to download the Relationship Regulator for free, click in the show notes and you'll find that resource for you today. Now, back to the show.
I really love what you're sharing here, and I wonder, um, what do you think about that? Because like, it's not like I'm one thing or another thing. I'm not like compassionate and I'm anxious. I can be both. I can be, you know, multidimensional. And
Yeah.
somehow I think that's important because I often used to want to fix myself so that I could
Mhm.
be better, right? And
Yeah.
that never worked for me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't work for me neither. So, yeah, it's so true that it can be there all at the same time, both compassion, agitation, and I don't know, so many other qualities and emotions, feelings, and they all come together in the heart space. That's
Mm.
how it feels to me. The heart can hold anything, everything, all these polarities, you name them, the heart can hold them. So for me, and that's also what we teach in this masterclass, it really comes down to learning to live and show up from an open heart or with an open heart. And I read the most amazing and simple exercise not so long ago that really is a practice to help yourself being able to have an open heart no matter what. And this practice consists of three, well, questions maybe, or yeah, questions. First question, or it's not a question. The first, I don't know the word in English, doesn't matter, is so be grateful for the creation of your heart. And maybe the question is, can you be grateful for the creation of your heart and feel this gratefulness for the
Mhm.
creation of your heart? Then the second step is be grateful for the preservation of your heart, the preservation of your body. Because without a heart, without a body, there's nothing we can do. So be grateful for the creation of your heart, your body, the preservation of your heart, your body, and for everything. And then really everything that life offers you as a experience. And I feel it's especially maybe the last step, to be grateful for everything that life offers. If I can be grateful for anything, even if I can't be grateful yet for something, and acknowledge that I'm not grateful yet for something, but I can be grateful for being aware of that, then something shifts in the heart space. And there's an open heart, because then the light we all carry inside of us, the light shines through our heart and our being. And we can be
Okay.
present with ourselves and with others. So I'm done.
So I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about all of the times that I felt like I had an open heart and then it was hurt by something, or all the times when I was in situations and in life, but in work situations too, that did not feel like it was safe for me to open my heart. And so I wonder what you would say to people that are in situations like that, because I think of a lot of people that are working in high stress situations. If they heard something like that, open your heart, they might say, no, I don't want to do that. So how do you actually, so first of all, is it like, is that a good idea in certain situations? And B, if it is a good idea, how do you develop that capacity to do that when you've
Yeah.
been hurt or you're in a difficult situation?
Yeah. But, it's when you close down to a certain situation because of the pain or the stress or I don't know, something, you also close yourself down. You close yourself down to yourself. So it starts with maybe recognizing that closing down yourself to yourself is never a good idea, because when you are closed down to yourself, to your own resources, to your own love, then nothing really works. There's even more stress to happen. Because there's no other law than when you close down to yourself, there's more stress, more pain that will follow. So it all starts with, well, maybe willing to open your heart to yourself. And in this stressful situation, in this painful situation, you can still be grateful for your heart, for your body. You can be grateful for the preservation of your body, your heart. And then acknowledge that there are parts in your life that you are not grateful for, and other parts you are grateful for. And you can be grateful for both aspects in your life, just for yourself. That's where a practice starts. And when you start to allow this heart energy to expand a little bit through your body and soften your body a little bit to yourself, then maybe you show up differently in this place of stress, or maybe not.
Or maybe you make a choice to actually remove yourself if that's the right thing too.
Exactly.
I like what you're saying, because if I'm shut down to myself and I'm sort of trying to muscle up or just, push through something rather than being open to what it is that my experience is, open-hearted, then I'm probably gonna stay in situations too long that aren't good for me.
Yeah.
And I probably won't say what is my truth, like share that with those around me that I trust. But even then, to have courageous conversations with people too and say, you know what, I'm out. I'm not going to do this anymore. Right. Like I know as I look back, I stayed in situations in professional and personal way too long because I was like trying to shut that down and protect myself rather than what you're talking about. So I like what you're saying. I think that's powerful.
Yeah. And that, so starting such a practice for yourself, to yourself, with yourself, shifts your focus, and energy follows focus and attention. So probably, and you're talking about that already, Trace, probably or maybe then something in the outside world will also start to shift because you have another outlook to whatever is happening over there. And it all starts with yourself.
Yeah, I started to use this tool I call the ripple effect, and it's the 4 intentional breaths you can take that acknowledge, appreciate, accept, and allow, and then working with that energy inside that sometimes is difficult to work with. And what you're bringing here today and telling me is help me to understand why that tool is working for people and for me is that there's a sense of getting connected to what is true in your heart and then being able to walk that out and make practical choices and take steps. So, and to listen differently to what it is that's going on because going back to what you were saying, like the quality of listening when I listen from my heart rather than when I listen from my head is very different. Like I can tell the difference and I have more space and time to be with people from there. I have more presence to share with people
Yeah.
from there. So
Yeah.
yeah, really, really powerful what you're sharing, Carolyn.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I know myself too, what is really an excuse that I also used very often to tell myself that I don't have time to slow down to this hard practice, for example, because there's too much going on. That's really an excuse.
Yeah.
And because it's not true. It's really not true. It doesn't take maybe even a minute to really bring your attention inside and to take a breath and to slow down. It's all a matter of choice. And yeah.
I used to say that I don't have people say, "Hey, Trace, like, why don't you slow down? Like, smell the roses, take a breath." I'd be like, "I don't have time to breathe."
Exactly.
I literally would think that, and then I would say it, and then I started to hear myself, and you're so right. And it's interesting to me too what neuroscience is saying about this because you self-regulation starts with being able to slow down, take a breath, it's only a minute. You probably have time to in the day to carve out a minute, don't you?
Yeah.
Like we do, but you're right, it's a choice. It really is a choice.
Yeah.
What would you say is one of the things that helped you to begin to make that choice? To like looking back, going from not doing it to doing it, what were some of the things that you as a manager and a leader uh had to do to make that choice?
Well, I learned it the hard way.
Me too.
I hit the wall.
Oh
And
my God. So if you're listening to this, you don't have to do it the hard way. Please
no.
don't do it the hard way.
Well, yeah, for me it was hitting the wall and yeah, being burned out for
Yeah.
a year and a half. That really was the trick for me. So now I learned my lesson. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so and again, I think like I just think about the people that are listening to this that are in a situation like that and that's really busy and I don't think you have to burn out to learn this. I think
No.
that you even if you can just start by taking 1 minute a couple of times in the day to step out, even if it's in a washroom or a closet or somewhere where you can really just separate yourself from the chaos and take that breath, slow down, and connect to what's going on inside of you, to really be present with what's going on inside of you, and then to listen and to begin to ask powerful questions. What is it that really is trying to emerge that's in your highest good right now through the chaos from underneath, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I must also acknowledge that when you're already running so fast, yeah, then it's really, really hard
Yeah.
to find space to stop.
Yeah.
Because, well, like in a car, when you're driving 160 kilometers per hour, you can't slow down the car to 10 kilometers per hour in a second.
No. No, you can't. One of the things that I've noticed that leaders that make the transition are doing is embedding in their operations moments that they and their team can spend being together without a big agenda, just to be present, to listen, to ask powerful questions, and to begin to do that together. That also can build capacity for this
Yeah.
because there's a co-regulative effect that has. Like when people and you it's so funny because we don't realize how much we need it until we do it, and then you're there and there's like a visceral relief you can feel in a breath, like a and then you go, "Oh, wow, like, I've been carrying a lot of tension and stress around."
Yeah.
So, leaders that can carve out a little bit of time, even, like, daily or weekly with their team like that, I think that helps.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and there are powerful tools also, like a listening circle or a check-in circle, or well, all of the, and probably everybody knows those
No,
forms.
no, no, don't say that. That's not true.
Okay.
Like that people don't oftentimes know what a listening circle. I think indigenous practice and indigenous people that are sharing their culture oftentimes will teach us about listening, about relationship. There's so much that the indigenous peoples of North America and other cultures, of course, around the world, other indigenous people from around the world share with us about this.
Yeah.
But typically speaking, in what I'll call a colonized society, there's not a lot of slowing down and listening circles and checking. So that is a new concept for a lot of people. So I think that yeah, it's important. That's why we do this podcast
Yeah.
so that people can actually hear, wow, what's a listening circle? How do I do that? How do I
No.
do that in my operation? And so if you have questions about that and you're sitting there going, yeah, what is a listening circle? Reach out to Caroline and I on LinkedIn and we can tell you more about that.
Yeah.
Caroline, thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing
Yeah.
what you're doing in your masterclass. And you're going to do another one next week.
End of the month.
Okay, when you do the next one, then bring that back, what you do
Yeah,
for that one, and let's talk about that too. That was great.
will do. Yeah.
All right. Have a good day. All right. Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you have any questions about the tool or the ripple effect or the things that we shared on this podcast, please reach out to me, either myself on LinkedIn or Caroline as well on LinkedIn, and we'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Otherwise, have a great week this week. Be safe and remember to be a safe space for yourself. Have a great day.
Thank you again for getting to the end of this podcast. And if you enjoyed this and you found that there was value in it for you, my invitation is for you to subscribe for future episodes that come out weekly on Tuesdays. Thank you again, and I'm looking forward to being with you next time. Now remember to be a safe space.